we're in the future. It turns out we're in the future. Please, if you would like to hear what I've got to say, plop on your headphones. If you don't want to hear what I've got to say, quietly turn them off, but I will see because your blue light will disappear. This really is the future. This is a first for me doing this. And I'm going to use my cruise ship voice, which is quite low and down here. Hello, my name's Katon, and I'm the founder of Brighton Gin. And at some stage, a slide will appear behind me where I'm wearing absolutely identical clothes, so you know that I really am from Brighton Gin. What I'm planning to do is to have a bit of... Also, I'm really short, so I will be up here and moving around a bit. If I get too close to you, just tell me to back away. I'm going to chat to you for 15, 20 minutes or so. And then what I'm hoping to do is to have some questions. Can you hear? You just didn't want to hear any more, did you? Like, enough of this. I've also set myself the challenge that I'm not going to swear during this. So we'll see how that goes. And I've got a script, the whole thing, because this is like being on the radio now, except I can see the whites of your eyes. Absolutely terrifying. Before we kick off, what I want to do is just find out who here drinks gin. Who here likes gin? That's bloomin' brilliant. Who here dislikes gin or is ambivalent? I'm not going to be able to bribe the sound man, am I? That's a terrible sound. And of those of you with your hands up, are you willing to potentially have a go at sipping of a neat gin and maybe change your mind? Excellent, we've got a winner in the back. Anyone else willing to? Yep. Brilliant. Mighty cadets who are pouring gins at the back. It's one for everyone, I think. So just to pre-warn you, if you've never drunk neat gin before, or if you've not drunk neat gin since that terrible, terrible accident with your parents' kitchen cupboard when you were 14, this is your chance to reclaim gin and to try something entirely different. But I'm going from the show of hands that you don't need evangelising to. You're gin lovers already. Who has tried? Let's do this another way. Who has heard of Brighton Gin? Bloody brilliant. Bloody's not a swear word these days anyway, is it? No, it's practically on children's television every time. So what I want to do, and actually what I need to do, is for somebody who's very good at reading a watch to make a vigorous gesture at me when I've been talking for a while. Is that all right? She's on it. I don't know, 15 minutes? That sounds all right? Yeah, excellent. Because I have a terrible, terrible tendency, if I'm in a room without a clock, to just nervously talk till the end of all recorded time. So excellent. Just let me know when to shut up. So what I thought I would do is tell you a bit about the story of Brighton Gin. And on one hand, it seems absolutely blooming ridiculous to be going, crikey, there's a story of Brighton Gin. But there is. Because 7 years ago, actually 7.5 years ago, I had a light bulb moment, and it was a genuine light bulb moment. I've been dancing around a friend's kitchen table in Bedford Square in Brighton. We've been on the gins. We were dancing around to really terrible 80s music till about 4 a.m, Plymouth gin, actually, to be exact. And the next day I was going for a run down the seafront. Run is a mild exaggeration. I was moving down the seafront in Lycra faster than a walk. And as I was running down the seafront, I thought, crikey, if I'd been drinking anything other than gin last night, I wouldn't have been off my sofa, let alone out of my house and going for a run. I thought, that's it, gin is the drink that lets you get away with it. Brighton is a place that needs to get away with it on a frequent basis. My God, I want to make Brighton Gin. I had the square root of bugger all about how to, but I have to say I've always loved gin, and you can tell from the age of me that I'm not in the first flush of youth. So, I've drunk gin all the way through its suffering years. Certainly in the 80s and the 90s, people were just like, it's my nan's drink was always the thing. Drinking it in a pub, you were lucky if it had, made eye contact with an ice cube. There might be a little limp bit of lemon in it looking like a deceased goldfish. And that was how gin was just served. But I always loved it and always drank it. And I've been lucky enough that I've always had brilliant times drinking gin. it's got this really, really unfair association about being mother's ruin. There are lots of reasons for that. There's the original moral panic about the gin craze, the original gin craze. There's, Hogarth's drawings. There's the associations of fallen women, in inverted commas, drinking a bottle of gin in the bathtub, all of those kind of things. It's got all these historical associations. So people think it makes them cry. It doesn't. And a university has studied this and gone, no, it's true, gin doesn't make you cry. It is brilliant. So all of you had your hands up at the beginning. You are right. It is a marvellous, marvellous drink. So that's kind of the why of Brighton Gin. The how took a lot longer, because certainly 7.5, nearly 8 years ago, apart from being a passionate, avid consumer of gin, I didn't know anything about it at all. I have got a chemistry GCSE, but a really, really bad one, and also it was a long time ago. So I had this idea, thought, that's it, I want this to be Brighton Gin, and I specifically wanted it to be called Brighton Gin. You know how there are always bubbles and ideas, and I thought that gin, specifically craft gin, was going to have a moment. Things were really taking off, particularly with craft beer, but I wanted this drink to be really associated with the place that I lived in and I was obsessed by. So that was the starting point. Everything else worked out along the way. And I think probably like lots of people here today, the how, if I'd known how difficult things would have been 7.5 years ago, I'd just not be making gin, basically. So I'm really glad that I didn't know any of these things and had a vague idea about what I wanted to do and how, it's like, how hard can it be? Really hard is the answer. Because, making a souffle is, in terms of the ingredients list, probably as simple as it gets. But there are 3,000 different ways you can screw it up. And it turns out that it's the same with gin. So legally, Brighton Gin has been in existence for five years. Is anyone here from HMRC? Just checking these things. But ahead of that, me and my mate Ian, also known as Dr. Easy, who's still one of my directors, I knew that I needed a scientist, and he's like a laser physicist. So I thought, brilliant, come and get involved. But it turns out you really, really don't need a physicist, you need a chemist. So he and I made all sorts of terrible mistakes. We bought a still off eBay. We set it up in my old flat, my little one-bedroom flat next door to the Lion and Lobster in Brighton. We promptly set fire to it, which we had to pat out with my oven gloves that then caught fire. And the pair of us were out on the fire escape by flat going, we're idiots. This has got to get better. But I'm not embarrassed about talking about all of the things that we got wrong and did wrong, because they've been so essential in us getting to the point where we are today. And the point where we are today is that we do absolutely everything. By the way, these are just ticking around in the background in case you've never been to Brighton or to the seaside. But also, yes, it's just nice, some colour in the background. So the point where we're at today is we do absolutely everything by hand, following the process that took us 2.5 years to get to. So actually, in terms of developing a recipe, there are tons of people out there, it turns out, who you can go to and go, I want to make gin, or I want to make vodka, and they'll go, great, what do you want it to taste like? And 24 hours later, they will give you a liquid that tastes of gin, and then you can get it branded and off you go. So if any of you are thinking about starting a booze business, that's the quick way. But I'm really proud that we've spent ages doing things the way that we've done them. The gin that we make everything is done by hand from beginning to end, whether it's peeling the fruit or crushing the juniper to hand waxing and labelling each bottle. And if anyone hasn't seen a bottle of Brighton Gin, there are some at the back because they're being poured out this very moment. Look at this, Exhibit A, being beautifully modelled. Thank you very much indeed. So everything is done by hand, and that's again something I'm really proud of. At the beginning, we were so worried about that because each bottle looked slightly different, and I know from looking at them who's made them, and we're like, oh, but they don't look like bottles do in the supermarket. And then we twigged that actually, not only is that fine, but actually that's good. A person has done that. So I know the ones that my mum has labelled. My mum's in her 70s. She has insisted she's not going to get her cataracts done. She's got a bit of a jaunty angle to her labels. And again, that's fine. And the same with the waxing as well. According to the different way people do it, it's got a different finish. But that's never stopped Maker's Mark from being successful. The fact that each bottle's got a different wax thing on it. So yes, we've got this handmade gin. We're called Brighton Gin. We're determined to always make and do everything down here. I definitely don't need to tell you all what an amazing part of the world Sussex is and how much incredible stuff there is going on here. I'm really proud that we're starting in an entirely new industry for Brighton and Hove. There's never been distilling there. I think that's probably because we've got such a rich brewing heritage around Sussex, and then obviously the sparkling wine as well, that no one's needed to make gin because we've been making all these other fabulous boozes. So we're starting this new thing for Brighton and Hove, and we're trying to, what's that phrase? You are what you say you are? We are going nationwide with it. Just this week we've just signed a UK distribution deal that will help take the spirit of Brighton round the country. One of the things that we're really limited by is that in a world where there are 600 British gins, there's more than 3,000 worldwide, actually what makes somebody choose one thing over another? And that's about getting in front of people and talking to them, getting people to try it and connect with it. So we've linked forces with a distribution company who have got people who will help us go and do that, because we also want to be taking the spirit of Brighton absolutely overseas. I don't know how much of the B word has been mentioned today, and I promised myself that I would not even name it, but refer to it only as the B word. But we're in uncertain times, but we're just taking off with our export journey. Tomorrow I'm off to Copenhagen to go and spend some time with our Danish importers. Because in Denmark, the fact that actually you've got a handmade gin that's with slightly wonky labels but with a good provenance is something that's really connected. So we're going to go and host this massive gin show in Copenhagen, which is just bonkers and brilliant. But also kind of looking further afield, I wrote some things down. I'm going to read them out because some numbers have just come out today, conveniently. So today's figures are that there's over 600 million quid's worth of British gin was exported last year. It's the moment is just absolutely taking off. We now export more gin than we do beef and beer combined. And also 65% of all British gin is being exported. With gin, we've got something British that we can absolutely stand up and go, do you know what? We are the best in the world at this. I've done some really, really ridiculous things since nearly setting fire to my kitchen those many years ago, including being to 10 Downing Street to talk about local gin and British gin and why the government should support us and try and help this burgeoning industry, take off. And also have been to the EU to do the same thing. They did this thing about 4 years ago where all of the EU member states were invited to come and bring the best of their food and drink and display it at the EU Parliament. So you've got these incredible French cheeses and German sausages and all this fantastic stuff. There was not a single foodstuff, embarrassingly, on the British pavilion, but there were 30 incredible gins. And it's like, actually, we have got a thing that we're definitely the best at. So sod mother's ruin, that's an old image that I'm campaigning to try and rail against, because this is something where actually we are world leaders in it, and I really hope that it's something that we can continue with. And the world is a big place, so if we can take our gin to we've just about survived the 97 days of dry January, which has been awful on so many fronts, although I applaud people's determination to drink less and drink better. But actually, if we can potentially take our gin to Australia or Brazil or to places where their peak gin times are happening when everyone is joining the gym and trying to recover from Christmas, then brilliant. That's where we're off to. The challenges, there are plenty of them. All of our costs across the board have gone up. on an average of 10% over the last kind of month or two. So that, combined with dry January, has been a not a rosy way to start the year. But we're really determined that if we keep making something brilliant, made by our amazing team, and somewhere there is actually a meaningful thing on there somewhere, which is about our incredible team of people. I'm delighted that we've got a 55-year age gap between our youngest and our oldest employee. We've got a really genuinely diverse workforce. We're a flexible employer, although I've discovered why it is that people can be absolutely rotten in their working practices and not employ flexibly. It doesn't come without its challenges. But from day one, we've wanted to set up a company that, if it's got the choice between doing something the better way or a different way, we're going to try and take the better way, even if it's not the easiest way. And whether that's in terms of sustainability, recycling, committing to being a plastic-free industry. We use stills that recycle their cooling water. So it's all fairly unsexy stuff, but to us it's really exciting, and I firmly believe that if enough people make small changes, actually we can be unstoppable. There's that great quote from the Dalai Lama about, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping in a room with a mosquito. And that's the thing. So we're trying to do these, as many positive things as possible. I think it might be time for gin. Yeah? Shall we? To my wonderful youthful colleagues at the back. Are you all listening to drum and bass? Yeah. May I encourage you to step forward? Thank you for your assistance with this. Does anyone have any nerves about trying neat gin, apart from those who are ambivalent about gin? I've just ground you down in submission. They're like, just give us the gin. Excellent. Please come and get involved. Do you want hand dishing some out? Hang on. Okay, so you may, of course, take your gin and, like the chap at the back who said he was up for trying neat gin, has just whacked it straight back. Brilliant. That's absolutely fine. You may choose to do that. You may also choose to not shoot it, to give it a sniff. There's more on their way round, so there will be gin for all who need it. To give it a sniff, what you should be getting on the nose, and remember this is warm gin out of a plastic beaker. Excellent. Exhibit A. Brighton gin. So obviously there's tons more gin in the bottles, so have 2 shots, I would say. So on the nose you've got juniper. That's the magic thing that makes gin taste of gin. Give it a little sip. Too late again here, because they're just who are you people? What day of the week is this? Give it a little sip. If you're not used to drinking neat spirits, it can be a surprise. This is a 40% alcohol drink, which one generally doesn't drink at 2:30 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, although we should. Isn't life better already? Roll it round, give it a bit of a swallow, and then what you should be getting, first of all, is again lots of juniper, because I love gin that tastes of gin, but then citrus. You've got fresh orange peel, fresh lime peel, which turns out to be a real pain, by the way. When you go, we're always going to use fresh peels, it's a pain. Not many ends of fingers left. And then lots of coriander, which has a lemony spice. That's from Ringmer, one of the few things that we've been able to source locally. And then ideally, as it goes down the neck, you should be getting a warm from the alcohol, but not a burn. So we've gone for something that's deliberately smooth enough to drink neat. We use 100% organic wheat as the base spirit. I've lost one to a choking fit.
That was just no.
And you're used to drinking my gin neat. Oh, heartbreak. Who would like some more? I think is the next thing. Excellent. So the chap at the back who said you were ambivalent about drinking gin has shot it and says he's up for some more. Brilliant. We have a winner. It's almost as if I planted you in the audience. I didn't. One of the things that I always recommend about trying a craft spirit neat is because basically anything that tastes pretty good, at room temperature, out of a plastic beaker, unmixed, not just served absolutely as it is going to be phenomenal when you have it in your chosen drink. I'd always recommend, if you're trying a new gin or a new whiskey, or or if rum's your thing, always try it neat first, because if ultimately the destiny is going to be that's going to be covered in another 80% worth of another drink with a mixer, that's going to really, really change the flavour. So just try it as it is, and that will help you establish if it's the quality of it. Who's not driving and would like to have some more? There is more to have if you want, but it's not compulsory. We have one there, we've got one at the back. Excellent. 2, 3, 4. Oh my God, I've got a new career as an auctioneer. I love it. Brilliant. Shall I just pass this round?
How many units would that be then?
Say again.
What unit would that consist of in terms of a measure? Hardly a unit, I would have thought.
Absolutely. So there's a question about how many units this would be. So there are, in a 40% bottle of gin, you've got 28 units, and that's roughly half of one, depending on how your measure came out. Is it safe to pass it up and down? Hello, wonderful, youthful, one of the colleagues. You're all listening to drum and bass, I know it. Please, may I encourage one of you to wander freely with this? Is that all right? Also, we have a special other surprise. So one thing I should say is that since the beginning, we've taken a very painful decision to really focus on doing one thing and doing it really, really, really well, which I find very difficult because I love sparkly things in hedges. I'm really easily distracted, and I love flavours and doing stuff, and I get excited about stuff. So focusing on one thing for the last 5 years has been really, really difficult. But yeah, so there's also. This is the interactive bit. Please, though, I must encourage you all, if anyone is driving or operating machinery or doing anything, being a responsible adult, please don't get shit-faced, okay? Let's just put it that way. Just please, be responsible for your own alcohol intake, etc. So this has got a white label on it because it was the first bottle of it, but we have just released a brand new seaside strength, which I thought would be nice to bring to Worthing. So this is a cool 57%. So it's really, really pokey. It's Brighton gin turned up to 11. We've got 4 times the amount of juniper. There's tons and tons of citrus. It's a proper in-your-face gin. If you're a gin lover, I really recommend you give this a go. Do bear in mind it's 57%. But what we've done is we've created and this is not how I'd recommend drinking it usually. So actually, this is the gin that will stand up to any mixer that you choose to use. You'll still be able to taste gin through it. If you're not sure about the taste of juniper or gin, don't do it. But I'd love you to try some. It's blooming great. Do you want to try some? You okay? Excellent. Oh my God, the countdown theme is on. I need to take her. Excellent, we've got 2 in the front row. Anyone else? Well, yep, excellent, brilliant. Seaside Strength is launched. Oh, hang on. So, come and give this a go. Oh, look, hang on. Oh. This doesn't happen to Graham Norton, does it? Come and get involved. Pour yourself a tiny... Boo! There we go. Right, excellent. Anyone else for Seaside? That's a lot. So, anyone else to try the Seaside?
Is it a different?
It is. It's 57%. It's really strong though. Just to warn you.
Stronger than the first.
It is by a long way.
Oh, let's try a drop then.
Excellent.
Very nice.
It's really. We're absolutely. There you go, like so. Would anyone else like to try? Excellent. Hang on, let me just see if I can. I was hoping.
It is strong.
It is strong. It's but it's so. And it has a proper label and everything now as well. But we're trying to bring, the spirit of the seaside. It's about fun, accessibility, the fact that, we come to these parts of the world to have a good time. And this is the juice to do it. Hang on a second. Let me just whisk.
Can I ask you a couple of questions?
You said, hey. How do you feel about hearing yourself in your own head?
So I'm interested in a couple of other things. So I'm really interested in how you actually got it to market. So how did you get the first people to take it up? And then secondly, we're on a digital apprenticeship, so I'm interested in how you're using social media to spread the word.
Excellent. Two brilliant questions. And I have to warn you that I sometimes can't remember the second question, so remind me. The getting it to market, kind of coming back to that thing about things being actually much, much harder than you ever realise. It turns out, in a way, making the gin is the easy bit, but actually that thing about getting the first people to, getting licences, making sure you're fit to produce, all of that sort of stuff, everything you have to do before you then even have a thing to go and talk to somebody about. And it was a ridiculously, I'm sure there are more efficient ways of doing it, but we basically went round with bottles from our first batch of gin and said to people, please, will you try this? But I think because we spent such a long time working on the recipe and also on the branding, that we were really confident. I'd always thought as a tiny producer, we have one shot at getting our thing out there. So I know there's lots of different thinking about that actually maybe if you're making, I don't know if you've got a service or maybe if you've got a virtual business, that you should get it out there, whatever's, and test it and then hone it. But we thought with this physical product we couldn't do that, so we just tried our darndest to get it as right as possible from the beginning. But it was literally going out and going in and talking to strangers, which is a terrifying thing to do, particularly when it's like, I've sold my car and my flat and everything to make this, and the fear of rejection is absolutely phenomenal. But luckily lots of people liked gin, which was great. And the first batch that we made and bottled had 400 bottles in it. We released it just before Christmas 4 or 5 years ago, and had thought that batch would last until March, and it all sold out before Christmas. So that was a good and exciting thing. But it was absolutely about going around and knocking on doors and talking to our independents, going into my local pub and my local offie. But again, there's that thing of, what if they hate it? I'm going to have to find a new pub. Oh, God. But then the flip side is being, oh, you're right there, it's on the move. The flip side of that is now being proud to see it in our places. On the digital front, so Brighton Gin has always been, really, really annoyingly, has always been absolutely bootstrapped, like the selling the car and then moving out my flat and those kind of things. One of the joys of social media, which in my previous life is something that I've just been involved in because I enjoy and do, actually that's been really valuable to us. The power of, I know that Twitter's now being superseded by Instagram, and anyone with a food and drink product, Instagram is absolutely where to go and take it. But the power of having something where you can have a conversation with people who are interested in what you're doing, this whole amazing online world of people who are really into local products, well produced with genuine provenance, is amazing actually, and also the costs associated with that. For a startup, it's your time and your energy and your enthusiasm, but it's really, really helped us. And we've also always had a kind of tone of voice with it that's been quite Brighton-y, I suppose. It's always been about being accessible, being really proud of what we do, but also not just going, we're going to sell this thing to you all the time, because actually we're all obsessed with the place where we live. We're all obsessed with Sussex and stuff that goes in it. on Twitter, we we retweet a lot. We talk about other things that are happening. It's not just a one-way, here's our thing, buy it, buy it, buy it. I'm getting to grips with Instagram more. I am getting better at posting things to the right accounts and not sending lots of pictures of my cat out through Brighton Ginstagram. But it happens. There's occasional crossover. Claude occasionally appears in the Brighton Ginstagram feed. And actually, I should say, if anyone would like to, because you're meant to put an ask into these things, aren't you? And my ask would be, please will you come and connect with us on social media. On Twitter, it's at Brighton Gin, or I'm at Kathy Katon, although there is a lot of Claude and avocado and toast and stuff on that, so that may not be for you. So at Brighton Gin on Twitter. On Instagram, it's at Brighton Ginstagram, or I'm Brighton Ginstagram Kathy, and we're just at Brighton Gin on Facebook. So please come and have a look. I also welcome feedback on our website, which needs lots of work, particularly around the consumer journey, like lots of things. So vaguely answering your question just about like lots of things, start off with something that's, this is good, this is great, and actually time moves on. So our new project is about overhauling that. So if anyone feels they would like to give some feedback, that would be brilliant. It's not compulsory, but I'd love you to connect on social media and help us take the spirit of Brighton to the world, hopefully. Tell your gin-loving friends. Make your friends gin-loving.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Slow Gin was an old friend of mine, sadly departed now, but she used to live on or near Dartmoor and used to like gathering snows and add to the gin. How is that actually done, and do you do it in your range at all?
So slow gin, I'd recommend everyone has a crack at it. We don't do it in our range. Personally, I think it's one of those things that actually, like a roast dinner, I think is always best done at home, actually, with your grandmother's recipe. So I use my grandmother's recipe. I make it at home. I don't necessarily use the best quality gin in it. So you need to get slows. If you can get them, pick them after the first frost, ideally. If you can't get them after the first frost, then gather them in, pop them in the freezer. Basically, that splits the skins and it does something to the sugars in the slow. Lob them in your bottle. So get a litre bottle of gin, drink the top third of it, so you've created the space. Lob in your slows, tons of sugar. There are lots of
recipes. Slows in whole, do you?
Slows in whole, but make sure they've gone in the freezer so it splits the skins. Lots of sugar and thyme. You've got to put it in a dark cupboard, and you need to turn it every week for months, and you need to not drink it till it's ready. So
how long would that be?
Well, it depends. It's one of those things, the longer you leave it, the better. So if you want something that's really rich and syrupy, same with damson, just leave it as long as you've got the discipline to.
All right, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
Over yonder, hang on.
I think everyone would like to know what you would tell yourself when you were starting to do differently. Is there anything that you would turn around and say, I wish I'd done that would have sped me through the journey? Because most people are entrepreneurial. They're looking for getting through things and getting to the end of the journey quickly. I mean, people like Protein Ball, who are local companies, do you sort of talk to them? Do you all get together so that you share your experiences?
Yeah, I think excellent questions in this where I get my serious bit on for a sec. There's so much that I'd do differently if I were given the chance. I love collaborating with people. I'm really interested in just working with people. People make life worthwhile and exciting and doing stuff. But I made some really bad choices early on about people to collaborate with, because I just tend to take everyone at face value, because why not? Turns out really, really good reasons why not. I've made some really awful mistakes about people to work with. Although in the larger scale of things, generally more people are good than are bad. And also there's that thing of I also believe in. This is not necessarily a good thing about sharing information, collaborating and stuff. It unfortunately leaves you open to being ripped off. That's the downside of having a collaborative, open approach, and that's something I'm trying really hard to learn from. But it's hard to keep that in mind. Not least because I just don't want to be like that as a person. I want to be collaborative and doing stuff, and so I think that being careful about who you get into bed with. in every sense of your life. It would have been really, really great to have had some financial resources, particularly with making a physical product. Actually, you need stuff, you need space. It's something we've got an issue with that in Brighton, where we make things, we need room, and that's really expensive. So some quids would have been really, really useful. Finding the right people to work with early on. But I think also having the courage of one's conviction. If you've got, it's that tension between not deluding yourself about what you're wanting to do, but also actually, if you really know you're onto a winner, then go for it, all guns blazing. Not least because you'll need that conviction to carry you through working 7 days a week, doing ridiculous hours and stuff. You'll need that. Now, in terms of kind of collaborations and stuff, I try and do. It's like I'm completely honoured to be asked here today and to come and talk today, because actually I love going out and having the chance to meet people, to find out what people are doing. I firmly believe that one of the things I love so much about this bit of the world is what a really decent community ethos people have got, however you define community, and helping each other and paying it forward, well, hopefully not getting ripped off by people. It is one of the things I think makes life worthwhile. Has that vaguely answered the question?
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
I was just interested to know what you did before you founded Brighton Gin.
This is where you're now going to reflect on my last 20 odd minutes on a microphone, because I used to be a radio presenter. But obviously when you present radio, you don't get to see people's faces, so it's quite different hearing myself. But actually I still, so I was working for Radio 4, and was the schedule manager for Radio 4. In a way, the awfulness of Southern Rail with my commute up to London gave me a minimum of 3 hours a day, often more, to research and plan and think about stuff. So always try and put a rosy glow on what was a miserable time trying to commute. I still do radio, and I'm still involved in it. So I do a weekly show for BBC Sussex and BBC Surrey, which is all community focused, and it's about getting stories and things on air that deserve to be covered. So if any of you here represent anything that needs to be, it can't have an overly commercial focus, but if you've got something you want to talk about, please come and connect and let me know, and I can.
What did you
get
do on Radio 4? What program did you present?
So I used to make features. So I make stuff for Women's Hour. I still do one job for Radio 4 now, and this is the single thing that's made my mum most proud. So does anyone here listen to The Archers?
Oh yeah.
Anyone here willing to admit you listen to The Archers?
Yeah.
I want to do a Venn diagram of gin, Archers. So there's been a storyline running for the last year or so in The Archers, which features one of the most annoying characters. Annoyingly, this guy called Toby, who's started making craft gin, and I've been a storyline consultant on that because I used to work at Radio 4, left Radio 4 to make gin, and that's when you know that somebody's having a big cultural moment. If The Archers is reflecting it, it's like, my God, it must be happening. Yeah. So if anyone's making kefir, you're onto a winner. Stick with it. So radio and community stuff. Also, if you need, you were meant to tell me to stop ages ago. All right, okay. There you go. Oh, I've got. No, I put you on the spot. Always look where you're walking.
I just wondered what your longer term goals were for the company. Are you looking to expand the range? Do you see that you'd ever move into other flavours or anything else?
Excellent question. So the longer term goals and hopes for the company are, we want to absolutely go for it like the clappers, but in a way that's entirely true to our roots, basically. We want to get Brighton Gin as far around the world as we can. We just want to go for it, and if we can't, bye, thank you, bye, sorry if I bored you into submission. And yeah, we just want to go for it, but we want to make sure that we keep being handmade, that we use locally sourced ingredients, that we do actually all of the things that are part of our definition. We're going to the seaside strength, and you can see the pictures of the actual label of the finished thing on our website now. That's our first new thing that we brought on. We are going to do other stuff, but they like to be limited editions. So every year since we started, we've done a limited edition that is on sale in August around Pride, and where the profits from that go towards the Rainbow Fund, which basically distributes them to LGBTQ organisations, and actually things like that we want to keep doing, because coming back to the whole kind of community ethos thing. So there is going to be more stuff. They're likely to be limited editions. We want to try and see how far we can get. And if we fall on our faces, that's fine. We'll just drink the gin. But, we want to go for it.
How many people do you employ?
So we have, the question was, how many people do you employ? And so I was just repeating what the question was. And we have the grand total of 7 of us, including my mum and my best mate, and it's tiny actually. And I think it also then people can be really like, oh, this is it, when they come to the distillery, because expecting lots of amazing kind of gleaming giant copper things. Actually, we are really, really small scale, but we've got the ability to scale up by adding more sets of hands. Actually, we want to create jobs. We want to keep going with getting this new industry going in Brighton. Hi.
As you get bigger, do you see the handmade qualities of the craft kind of losing its artisan quality? And as you get bigger, it's not economically possible to make it handmade? And how do you see that affecting and challenging your business as you go overseas and expand your operations?
That's another excellent question, and we are going to we're going to stick with being handmade and top quality, super premium thing. We're not ever going to be in the position where we compete on volume. I don't want to do that. We can't make the quality of thing that we do by doing that. But you're absolutely right that there'll be, that's going to limit us in a way. But I'm fine with that. I'd rather we did something that really, really stuck to the quality, because also there are, people making. So Gordon's, for example, makes more gin in half a day than we do over an entire year of production, and they've done that for hundreds of years, and they're really, really good at it. So they can keep doing that. That's brilliant. But I think it is going to be difficult, and I think the question about what's artisanal and what isn't, there's lots of debate about at the moment. One of the things that really shocked me, as I've learned more and more about the craft industry, is the number of things that are sold as artisanal, handmade, and the like that aren't. And that was really sad to discover. It was like, oh God! And then also like, bloody hell, how stupid are we to be doing this? Like, no, we want to do things the right way. But I think there is going to be a tension between that. But I think ultimately, and also probably because of our price point, we're not going to be. The people who are into volume purchasing wouldn't look at us, so that's fine. I think. I don't know, watch the space. We're just making up as we go along, but trying our hardest. Oh, it's late night Jazz FM. Got 2 more questions in the audience.
Hello, Kathy, thank you. I just wanted to ask, have you got your flattened car back again? That sounded really drastic.
Oh, it's me and Frank Sinatra. Excellent. I have got a flat, but I do live in a one-bedroom flat with a lodger and a really moody cat. See Instagram. We've got a van. We have a collective van now, but mainly I've got my Brighton Gin push bike, which I drive around town. So it's less desperate. But I think I'm sure it must be desperate for everyone. Actually, it's hard work, isn't it? All of it. I'm loving this on the lead thing. Where am I going to hang on?
Where was the point that you actually felt brave enough to give up your paid employment to actually set up this business, or let go of the paid employment to do the business?
Yeah, absolutely excellent. And it was the latter, and it was probably about 6 months into, in effect, doing 2 full-time jobs. And it's going to sound really bleak and miserable, but my current relationship failed because I was just working the entire time. It was like, actually, something's got to change. The gin's on the up, you know, there were lots of cuts in radio. I thought, okay, actually that's it. But it meant working again then for another like 6, 7, 10 months without being paid in the middle. And big thanks to my friends and family really for propping me up. Get some more quids in at the beginning. I think that's probably the theme. Hiya.
Where can we buy it?
Oh my God, amazing question. It is available to buy from Waitrose, just up the road. You can buy things from brightongin.com, including a wide variety of ridiculous things with our bottle print on, Marks and Spencer's. Full list of stockists on brightongin.com.
Local bars.
Absolutely. You give us a list of local bars. So the Corner House.
Not that I would know. The Corner House, the Beach House. I think there's several others, aren't there now?
Libertine, Rocking Horse.
Rocking Horse, yeah. I haven't been to them all, but there are quite a few local ones that you can go and buy the Brighton Gin from. So I think we should all be supporting you. So I'm going to take the mic because you'll never get off the stage otherwise. So I think thank you so much, Kathy. We really appreciate you coming along and telling us your story. It's great. And we all support